Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's e-conference on COVID-19 Impact Assessment and Revival Strategy, broadcasted by Travel Trends Today, T3. I, Murari Jha, editor Travel Trends Today, will be your host for today's e-conference. To set up the tone for today's conference, I would like to brief on some of the findings from global and travel and tourism bodies. So the impact as per the global tourism bodies is that industry is facing the biggest crisis ever. UN WTO estimates 20 to 30% drop in international travel, international arrivals to see a negative growth of 1 to 3% for 2020, and the revenue loss to be in the range of $300 billion to $450 billion. WTTC estimates job loss of 50 to 75 million due to COVID-19. IATA estimates the global revenue loss for the passenger business between $63 billion to $114 billion in 2020. Coming to India, there are some guesstimates. The industry body predicts a potential job loss of 38 million in Indian tourism and hospitality sector. CII estimates 1.58 lakh crore hit to the industry. Hotelivate, the hotel consultancy firm, estimates a loss of $4.2 billion to $4.7 billion in revenues for the Indian hospitality sector. In between, there has been a demand from the industry bodies, from the government. The main demands are GST holiday for the industry for the next 12 months, waiver for property and excise tax, reduction in power tariff, ATF needs to be brought down under GST, moratorium for next 12 months on all interests, principal amounts, etc. All tourism entities should be treated as priority sector, lending, etc., etc. As per the latest report by WTTC, the global travel could be adversely impacted by up to 25% in 2020. This is the equivalent to a loss of 3 months of the global travel. This could lead to a corresponding reduction in jobs of between 12 to 14%. Today, we have a galaxy of speakers with us, throwing light on various issues and topics related to COVID-19. The speakers will share their valuable opinion about how to make up the lost business post the coronavirus issue. Today's webinar will be hosted by our speakers, Ms. Rupinder Barar, Additional Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India; Ms. Jyoti Mayal, President, Travel Agents Association of India; Mr. Ajay K. Bhakaya, Managing Director, Sarovar Hotels and Resorts; Mr. Karl Bas, Chairman and CEO, Carson Advisory and First Vice President, Escol International India; Mr. Ankush Nidhavan, Managing Director, Nidhavan Group and co-founder, TBO Group; and Mr. E.M. Naji, Senior Vice President, Indian Association of Tour Operators. Before proceeding with our conference, I would like to highlight a few important instructions in brief. Audience can feel free to click on any of the widgets available at the bottom of their screens to know the corresponding information that particular widget is carrying. You can also click on the abstract tab to know about our today's conference in brief. Please feel free to ask any questions anytime during the course of the webinar pertaining to the topic by clicking on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We also encourage you to participate in our question and answer session post the presentation. Now, coming to the question, my first question is to all speakers, and I request all speakers to respond to this question in 1 to 2 minutes. To begin with, Ms. Mayal, President, Travel Agents Association of India, the oldest travel agents association of India. The first question is that Corona probably has had the biggest impact on almost all kind of trade and commerce in the last 100 years. Travel and tourism is the hardest hit. How best we can utilize the lockdown period to come over the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic? Ms. Mayar.
Yeah, thank you, Murari. Thank you so much, and thanks T3 for organizing this event. I think it's a great way to connect. Sorry, no one can see me. That's the challenge of COVID-19, which I'm facing sitting at home. Well, to go ahead with your question, you've said all those statistics, which I think have been said very well, and we've already given those documents through FAITH, through Ministry of Tourism, from Ministry of Aviation, CII, and it's all over the news everywhere. But coming back to the survival, what you just spoke about, I think it's very, very challenging. We've never seen such a situation. I think I used to always feel that in history, I don't know where our names will come in, but I feel that we'll also be part of some history when our great-grandchildren are studying about it and COVID-19 comes into the world. To take this forward, I think the demographic of the entire industry is going to change a lot. And so is the traveler, the way he's going to look at travel right now. And not going into the figures more because you've already said those, I think it's going to be a real challenge for them to come out, to travel, and to actually go forward with it. But saying this survival part, I think this is a time for us to reinvent, to re-engineer the entire thing and see how our suppliers are going to work with us and how we can take this forward in a positive way. Because I'm sure we will get out of it, though it does look very bleak right now and we're not sure where we are heading. But I'm sure we will get out of it. We've always been able to survive and thrive, and that's what we will again be doing. But, of course, we'll have to look into a new way of working. Sorry?
I'll be coming to that question, that particular question to you. Now I am coming to Mr. Bakaya, one of the finest brains of the Indian hospitality industry. What do you suggest, Mr. Bakaya?
Thank you, Murari.
How to use this time in...
Yeah, well, in very simple words, very simple terms, we are in ICU, and it's going to take a while for us to get out of it. It's going to be slow and long, and this is one time when we definitely need some help from the government. Having said that, we need to approach, or we have been approaching the government at two different levels. One is the center for all the loan and interest deferrals and perhaps GST deferrals, and the second one is the chief ministers of various states and union territories on things like electricity on actual demand rather than contracted demand, on issues like liquor licensing, property taxes, municipal taxes, etc., etc. At the same time, we do have to remember it's a poor country. Our biggest challenge is people. Hotels employ lots and lots of people. The government directive at the moment says keep them all on, pay them full wages. Being a collect and pay business, we are not quite sure how that's going to happen. So that's one of the big things we're grappling with at the moment. I don't want to go into any estimates or guesstimates on what the future is going to be or how soon we recover or how bad it's going to be. We'll watch it on a daily basis. But our immediate problems are going to be loan repayments, interest repayments, and handling people. Thank you.
Mr. Nadeeb, what is your suggestion? How to best utilize this time?
We are the whole business is in a standstill, not only in India but all over the world. And as Jyoti Mayal as well as Bakaya said, the whole thing is going to be completely changed. It is going to be a new birth for the entire world. It's going to be a new birth for the tourism industry. The challenges are there, but I also feel that it's an opportunity for us to have a zero start, because what has happened is happened, but now it's going to be a new life for every one of us. So we have to be prepared to start from the scratch and rebuild our business and move forward with a kind of a different vision, because the customer's attitude is going to be changed, the customer's behavior is going to be changed, the whole, the action is going to be changed, because the people have learned to be patient, and people have learned to be quiet and sitting at home, and they have inculcated new habits in their life. So based on that, the behavior will be quite different. As Bakaya said rightly, the industry is actually in real situation, bad situation. We have to protect the employees, we have to protect the families, we have to protect the society, we have to protect everyone. And as entrepreneurs, the government is looking for entrepreneurs, everyone is looking for entrepreneurs to support that. But as far as we are concerned, it's still, and from March onwards, it's cancelled. Probably all of us would have paid the salaries in March, but April is a big question mark in front of us. So there has been larger support from the government. It is very evident, because 3 months moratorium is nothing. We need at least 1 or 2 years. See, the tourism industry is the first hit, and the last one to recover. So that is what the government should understand and support. Otherwise, it's going to be a collapse for the entire tourism industry.
I'll come to that question, survival and revival strategy. Mr. Karl Bas,
yeah, thanks.
the most experienced leader in the field of destination promotion. What is your suggestion?
Murari, I think we've all understood that what has happened cannot be changed, and what has happened is inexplicable in terms of damage to our industry. Having said that, there is a lot of solutions in management that we've been brought up with. Number one, if change is inevitable, you have to welcome it. So the first thing we have to do is to accept and embrace the situation that we have been given. Second, we need to reposition ourselves from the case studies of management. We have to use the opportunity now to reorganize ourselves. Tough decisions need to be taken by certain corporates that are over-leveraged. Tough decisions need to be taken in terms of manpower management, cash flow management. Tough decisions need to be taken in terms of vendor management. So these are all situations that we are going to be faced with in the next coming months. And I think management has those answers. It's just a matter of taking all those solutions and implementing them. It's a matter of human resource management, because you don't want to retrench, but can you retrain your staff? Can you reprioritize their workload? It's about vendor management. How do you work with your vendors? There are people, travel agents and tour operators, small and medium size, that are out there in the market. They need to be addressed. They will have cash flow issues with creditors, with large B2B suppliers. So there are a lot of issues to be dealt with. I think the lockdown will help us take one day at a time to plan a revitalization strategy, which I think is very apt for the subject matter that you have today. Thank you.
Now coming to Ankush.
Yeah.
Ankush.
Can you hear me, Murari?
Yeah. What is your take on this, Ankush?
Yeah. Murari, so I didn't get your question. I was locked out for a second.
I was like, how can we best utilize this time?
Okay. So I think, thanks to Murari for getting us on board. I think the challenge, I understand Mr. Bhatia said ICU, but I don't see us coming out of this ICU at least for the next 6 months. I think the most important help, I know the government is trying very hard to help us out, and I'm sure it will during the course of the next few weeks. But I think the government needs to have a specific kind of debt secretarial restructuring, because I'm actually talking on behalf of almost 19,000 travel industry and partners, including airlines who work with us, who employ 26 lakh people. I think a lot of us are struggling right now because we don't see how to manage our cash flows. I think cash flow is something which one has to really, really look at it beyond anything right now, because there's hardly any business going to happen. It's just that how do you preserve your cash, because that's what's going to make you survive going forward. So if the government can help us with a 12-month moratorium, as Mr. Najib said, whether it comes to GST/TDS, this will help us to ensure that people, continue to pay their basic running expenses, their salaries to the staff, which have been working them for many years. The other challenge, the survival is that the airlines and hotels really need to support the fraternity, because everybody's trying to manage their own cash flows, not realizing that the small medium travel agents are really suffering, with their receivables and the credit notes which are pending from the various suppliers. I think debt recovery is very, very important because how many debtors will actually survive is another question. Plus, remodeling a business and everything is fine, but the reality is the way the world travels will change. I see a lot of visa regime changing going forward. Somebody in the visa industry was telling me there's going to be no Schengen visa going forward. I mean, if you have to go to Spain, Germany, and France during the same trip, you actually need to apply for 3 different visas. The way we apply for a yellow fever to go to Africa, I think there will be a corona certificate now for us, which we'll be carrying or applying or which will be needed when you're applying for our visas. I think the fear factor is the biggest challenge, for somebody to travel overseas. I think being ambassadors of this industry, I think it's very, very important for us to create positivity right now. I'm more concerned on these things rather than learning things and everything, because let the business happen, rest will all follow. The worry is when that revenues will start coming in and how do you start getting cash, because right now the situation is really, really grim, and I don't see it bouncing back at least till Diwali this year.
So I'm coming back to that question. Ma'am Barar, what is your suggestion?
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks, Murari, for setting this up. I think for us, it is important to listen to all of you, and that's something we are trying to do on a regular basis, to have a dialogue. Ever since the pandemic broke out and started impacting the globe and then India. I think not only as part of the government, but as a citizen, my first and foremost concern is the safety of the people of this country, and I think we need to make sure that we are safe and that we follow all government instructions to keep the country safe. Because if I have to get my business back, it is important that the current trends where India is relatively less impacted continues to remain so. In the meantime, I think it's a good idea for us to introspect and evaluate our businesses the way we do them.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I am coming to the second question. We all know about the impact. Various statistics figures are coming from different quarters. We know that be it trade, domestic, inbound, outbound, hotels, airlines, destinations, theme parks, all of them are out of businesses. What about the recovery? What should the survival and revival strategy? How soon do you see that happening? And how fast we can make up for the lost business? Mr. Rajiv, what is your take on this?
No, I think, the revival strategy is very important because I feel that after every downfall or after every issue, there is an opportunity also. We have to understand that, we have faced such a, not probably this kind of a serious situation, but we have also faced a situation after 9/11. Because the life before 9/11 was different, the life after 9/11 was quite different. And we have completely changed that life because we were all under scanner. But as rightly said by, Ankush, because there is an opportunity for us in the future, and we have to actually start from the zero level and start our business. Yeah, I feel that probably the international business will take at least about 12 months to 18 months to recover because all our source markets are completely affected. Basically, US, UK, Europe, everybody. And the other markets, business share is very less. So, and behavioral change, in visa regulations, and all these problems are going to face serious crisis for us. So it's not going to be easy to rebuild. So the opportunity is basically the domestic business, and the domestic holidays is major opportunity for us. So revival has to be, very well planned. All the industry leaders put our head together and come out with brainstorm and come out with some practical strategies for us to rebuild the whole thing. And the tour operators, the hoteliers, everybody has to work together to rebuild our business. We can always go to new markets and go for promoting India in a smart way, in a digitalized way. Probably India is the least affected among the international countries. So that opportunity we have to understand, and we have to come out and with new plans, new ways, new digital technology usage, and new ideas have to come in to promote India in a different manner and bring back the business at the earliest possible. But definitely only with the support of the government we can do that. Government's role is very, very important at this point of time, because all these years the industry has created millions of jobs, created larger revenues and foreign exchange earnings. Government should understand that fact and definitely come out and rescue the industry at this kind of time with soft loans, with the lower interest rates, with EMI and all moratoriums, the longer period moratoriums, and GST holiday for at least 2 years. And such measures will actually give confidence to the industry. And then it is easy for us to rebuild our business. Otherwise, thousands of entrepreneurs will close down their shows, and they will be their livelihood will be in real distress. So this is very, very important that all of us should understand, work together as one team with the government. Government, of course, government priority is to look after the people, look after the poor people and the needy people. We accept it, we support it, we have no problem. But we have to have a strategy of revival of business sector-wise, and the tourism tops in that. Priority number one is tourism, aviation, and hospitality. And government, I hope that government will come out with some serious measures to support this industry, because we were told that the proposals have gone with the tourism ministry and the finance ministry to the Prime Minister's office for the final approval. And tourism is a pet subject of our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. And I'm sure that he will come out and support the industry. And we are all hoping and praying. And all the organizations like IATO, FAID, all FHRA, all the organizations have taken up this matter with the Prime Minister's level. Only with the support of the government we can survive, and that's very important. The financial institutions have a liberal policy to support the industry. Otherwise, this industry will collapse, and all the other industries will collapse.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bhakaya, the next question is for you from the hotel perspective. Like, what is and will be the impact, and what could be the survival and revival strategy for the hotels? If you see, thousands of small business hotels across the country are facing the difficult decision right now whether to close their doors and lay off millions of people over the next few days. What is the way forward for them?
Well, I think closing doors is going to be important. I think crisis is probably going to be in the immediate future, in the next at least 6 to 9 months. Because the is going to be more and more complicated for the next 2 months, down to all sorts of restrictions and quarantine and whatnot. So we need to turn to the domestic traveler. Everyone is a little bit scared. We are not going out of our houses. So I think the government really has to go in the form of a campaign so that the lockdown restrictions begin to get lifted. And as soon as we have some semblance of normalcy, we need to collectively approach the public at large, out in general on media, saying we are being extra safe, we are doing ABC, have very visible means of sanitization and hygiene. Mr. Najib talked about 9/11 before and after, and we are checking people, we're checking people's bags, we are going through metal detector frames and all those things in the last few years. We'll have to add some more things which convey very clearly to people that we are concerned about hygiene and sanitation, and we are taking all visible measures to protect anyone that walks through our doors. So I think that's a big thing, a certain reassurance to travelers saying it is okay to travel, and at least every possible step that can be taken is being taken at airports, through security, within the aircraft, in public toilets, in hotels, in taxis, all of that. That has to be a collective effort. And I think that is critical if we are to come back to normalcy in a reasonable time frame.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is for Mr. Kalbaz. You have been representing the destinations during these challenging times. What should be the strategy of the destinations to back on track in their main source markets, and how do you see the Indian outbound travel rolling out in the next 3 to 6 or 6 to 9 months?
Okay, so Murari, I think outbound travel for the next 3 months is accepted. We've all accepted it's not going to happen. It's just not viable for any of us to plan. Now, when you look at 6 months, you're looking at the coming holidays. We're looking at the festival period, which is Diwali, Durga Puja, Dussehra. So in order for anyone to plan for that period from an outbound perspective, we need to look at 2 key metrics. Metric number 1 is what will be the health of the stock markets as well as the corporate results when the figures start coming out in June and July. So all the year ending that is kept for 31st March has been deferred to the end of June. And when we look at when we switch on and we look at the news, either on electronic media or on print media, and we realize what corporate results are, in which direction the stock markets are headed, then the next metric you need to look at is the statistics or the head count on the current COVID cases. If from 4,000 odd we jump into 40, 50, 60, 70,000, if from the 2-digit mortality rate we jump into 3 digits and 4 digits, then I think it's safe to say for all tourism boards that this year is finished. And instead, we should be having strategies put in place to look at summer 21. Having said that, we then come into the Christmas and New Year period. Now, is it still viable for international tourism boards to promote themselves for the Christmas and New Year period? I would say that it is wise for short-haul destinations, but there will be no option for medium-haul and long-haul. I think short-haul will still have the opportunity to showcase themselves for Christmas and New Year, provided we have not reached 3-digit or 4-digit mortality rate, and we have not reached infectious disease cases going into 40 and 70,000 and so on, just like Europe. So if we go the Singapore way, which is with a much more lower rate of infection, if we assume that corporate results in June and July will be more lucrative to the investor, and we see a rebound, instead of a U-shaped curve, we see a V-shaped curve on the Nifty, on the Sensex, then I think there is some semblance of business left for the end of the year for coming out with a revival strategy. Otherwise, we will all have to defer our plans to 2021 summer.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Ankush. Ankush, how do you see the impact on OTAs? How are OTAs coping up with the current situation? And what is the future holds for them?
Sure. So, Murari, I think what we are obviously trying to do is, and I would obviously request every company in the travel industry to do the same, whether it's large, small, or medium, One is the impact assessment, because we are fighting this animal for the next 6 months, hopefully, if it settles down before. I think true leadership and entrepreneurship will be tested now. In good days, everybody, looks the same and does well. But the challenge comes when a pandemic, hits your face the way it is being faced by our industry. I think that's where the true leadership will actually demonstrate. And I think in our industry, the men and the boys will be separated, I think, in the next 9 to 12 months. You have to see and reassess your costs and budgets, because end of the day, this is something, there used to be an annual budget, a quarterly budget. Now I think it's a monthly budget, because you don't even know how is May, June, and July going to fare out as we move forward. The next one, I think, alliances. This is a time when a lot of people will join hands, to support each other. People who never used to look eye to eye, I think sense will prevail, and people will start talking and negotiating and working together. Renegotiate your contracts. I think this is a time when everybody should look and try to, negotiate the best what they can do when it comes to payment cycles, or might be or better take rates or commissions what you get from your suppliers. Rework your cash positions, because this is going to hold you for the next few months. And I think working capital is something one has to be really worried, because there's no revenue coming in, but yet you are paying a loan on your debt if you have debt on your balance sheet. I think people need some real solid mentors and people you trust who are not from the industry, because they will probably see your model very differently and criticize and help you, rather than talking to your same peers in the travel business, because we all see in one eye, and I think these are times when somebody else can really help you, who you believe as a great entrepreneur. We will focus on domestic travel a lot, because I think next 6 months, that is where the survival is. Short-haul destinations will definitely bounce back quicker than long-haul and medium. And also, I think this is a time for a lot of travel companies, to educate their teams, do a lot of webinars, do a lot of leadership courses, do virtual academies, and the most important, I think, is to talk to your teams, because this is a time when everybody is panicking. All your employees don't know where they're going to survive the next day. I think this is a time one has to stand with them tall and explain where the situation is, be transparent to them, explain them the challenges which you are facing as a leader and entrepreneur, and they need to stick by you and vice versa, and so that when the good times come, they're standing with you and everybody's smiling, like our pre-corona days, as I say, before like it's called, what was it? I forgot, something which I was cracking a joke with my friend recently. So that's my suggestion to at least to what we are doing in our company. And obviously, we all have taken some severe cost cuts. Also, I think most of the OTAs have taken severe pays and cut in their salaries, starting from a 30 to 50%. And this is going to be there till 30th June, depending on how things play up after 1st July. Yeah, Murari.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Ms. Maya. For a starter, I have noticed tidbits of talks from agencies about the pandemic once again looking into a spotlight the travel agencies' relevance to the customers and competitive advantage over the online competition. So, do you think that this pandemic is going to bring the traditional travel agents in the limelight, a spotlight again? Because most of the customers are not very happy with the OTAs, especially in India market, which is a very personalized and high-tech market.
Okay, if I'm able to understand you properly, because your voice is echoing slightly, you want to see if the OTAs and the mom and pops and the regular travel agents are going to stay or not. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Is this crisis situation...
Let me just put this in the right perspective. Yeah. Murari, I've got it. Let me just put this in the right perspective first. From a point of complete suspension to the recovery of travel it's going to be very, very slow. And we are not sure, when you talk about travel, what the frequency even of the aircraft is going to be. How many airlines are going to come in with it's going to be depending on the demand and supply. How many airlines are going to really be working in full throttle? How many airlines will be working very partially? For this next 9 months, I feel that's not really going to happen. Because there's going to be a negative GDP growth. There'll be economic dislocation. There'll be a broken supply chain. And there'll be low consumer confidence, which will not make them travel. The scare of the virus resurfacing is also in a lot of people's mind, because we've seen that happening in Singapore and China. But yes, like you said, the travel agents are here to stay. Yes, there have been issues where people have been facing a lot of challenges with the online travel agents. Well, that's a decision they have to take. And I don't think the travel agents in our country are ever going to move on. They're here to stay, and they'll, even if there's competition, which is always healthy, but I don't think the online travel agents are going to take away all the business, because the regular travel agents will always stay. But I need to put this something in the right perspective here. But when we were talking about how do we reinvent, which you had asked, and I haven't been able to answer that, is that, like Ankush also said, we have to reimagine and reestablish ourselves. We do need to look into and renegotiate our contracts. And now to break this into two things, there is the airline industry and one is the tourism industry. In the airline industry, we really need to see how we work with the airlines, not for now, but even the future. And that's something we need to put rightly in the right perspective. Because if we have seen Jet Airways going, we have seen Kingfisher going, and we've seen that we are the ones who bear the brunt as the travel agents, and all the small travel agents suffer the maximum because they do not have so much of cash flow. So the joint bank guarantees and the insurances which are there for the agents to actually fulfill their side of the contract, I think that it's high time that the ministry, and we've been having meeting with MOCA and with the MOCA secretary and the minister, and I think we've had very good interaction, that we are now requesting that the airline industry should also be giving joint bank guarantees in an amount to the government, so that we also feel safe. And that will be the future, because we will not put all our money at stake. We have travel agents right here in this panel also, and I'm not sure that we will going to do that again. The credit shares what the airlines are offering, I think is not going to accept it at all. Countries like Europe and America have already given a diktat to the airlines that they have to pay in cash. We are not here to fund the airlines. If we can fund ourselves, is also more than enough, And of course, for all this, we really do need the government to handhold us and take this to the right format of doing business. The environment needs to change, and I think that is what is going to make us survive. In tourism, yes, the domestic tourism is going to be coming into play. We have a lot of domestic tourism which can come in. It could be yoga, it could be health, it could be adventure, it could be Ayurveda, it could be so much more. And yes, one more thing, we have to collaborate, we have to work together, and that's what I think the associations are for. We need to lead our members to the right format. We need to use shared resources. We need to make alliances, and of course, we need to handhold our staff who are a part of an extended family. And for this, we have been actually requesting the government, and with Ministry of Tourism, and Rupinder is right there, and we've been in constant dialogue with them that we need the support of the industry, not only the government as Ministry of Tourism, but even aviation and, of course, the Finance Ministry. So I think that is what is going to make us survive. Right now, the challenge between OTAs and a regular, normal travel agent is not really the concern right now, I think. Hello?
My next question, you are talking about the government. My next question is from Madam Baral. Industry has asked various shops and financial package. So what is the role of the government in such a crisis? That is the number one. Is the government in India, center or state, doing something apart from the industry demand to mitigate the effects of corona for business and employment? And third, what is the current status of the financial package for the industry?
So Murari and others who are listening, I hope the voice is clear this time. Yeah. Okay, so as far as the various needs that have been put forth by the industry, I think we've been in a continuous dialogue, and the last meeting was headed by the secretary on the last Friday. You would appreciate that the demands, since they pertain to finance, all need to be conveyed to the Ministry of Finance, because tourism per se as a ministry does not get any budgets for that purpose. However, the the need for cash flows, the need for creating support system for the MSME has already been presented before the finance minister by the minister himself. So I think that's the status as far as that part is concerned. From the ministry, we are starting with webinars. We are starting with working with all of you very closely on how to pitch in the coming weeks, on how to create the dialogue and the narrative for promoting at least domestic tourism in the short run, and then working for the inbound.
Okay. We have been talking about the businesses being redefined and reinvented in the post-corona period. Do you think that this pandemic would affect the way of doing business of travel and tourism post-COVID-19? Mr. Bakaya?
Yes.
Mr. Bakaya?
I'm sure there's going to be some impact. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you. The question was, we have been talking about the business.
Yeah, I got it. There's a difference in the way customers behave and the way travel patterns emerge. One of the things that people have learned in the last 2 to 3 weeks, not only in India but across the world, is that you can do a lot of business, and I'm talking purely from a business point of view. You can do a lot of business sitting at home through your computer and through the internet waves. And people would really question, particularly in the short term, the necessity to travel. With all that's available to us in terms of Google and Zoom, etc., a lot of meetings can happen. We are uncomfortable with these meetings in the beginning because it's first time for everyone. But then they get more efficient, they get more effective, and they work. So although it's not the best thing for the hotel industry, I think there will be some impact on people choosing at times just not to take that flight for business, but rather doing their work on the internet. And perhaps the answer from a hotel point of view, the hotels that are catering to business travelers, is to then provide mega large TV screens and small cabins or small pods or capsules or areas where I can conduct a business meeting on the electronic media just as efficiently as having everybody travel across the board. So I see some change in travel patterns, at least for the short term. How long they're going to be, I don't know. From the point of view of leisure travel and traveling to see the world, I suspect that things will get back to normal in some time, perhaps a year, perhaps 2. And certainly, hopefully by that time, we will be looking back at business as usual. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Najib?
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Murari, I think, the difficult times, we have in the past, we have come out with the difficult times. Look at Kerala aspect. I'm talking about, the flood situation in Kerala, the Nipah virus in Kerala. Both were very, very crisis situation for Kerala. What we have done is, the people of Kerala, the government, the people, the industry, the entrepreneurs, the fishermen, everybody together fought against that and rescued and rebuild. And initially we started with the relief, and then started with the rescue, and started with the rebuild operation. So this is the best example in front of us. So this is a crisis much bigger than that. It is an international crisis. This was a state crisis. A state like us have learned the lessons from that, and today Kerala is actually leading in India if fighting against coronavirus right from day one, because we have declared the home stay lockdown much earlier than the nationally it was declared. So like that, I think it's a crisis situation, but definitely together, as all my other speakers said, together we have to the industry and the people, the entrepreneurs, the travel agents, the tour operators, the bigger operators, the government, everybody should come together and work together and bring out a solution for this and come forward. We will not have business. We will not have a good time. Probably we will start with home holidays because, like Bakaya said, hotel will be empty. We have to say that, you come to your house and stay here. Like that, we have to have some new products attracting the people to have very exclusive kind of holidays, and people should be, accepting that as an experience and moving forward. So it's going to be tough time for us, for all of us in all the fields, especially the travel, tourism, and airline industry. But I'm definitely sure it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity. We have to restart from zero level. We have to rebuild the whole thing. Our staff members have to accept it, and I'm sure they will accept it. Or the management also accept it. The Ankush said the cash flow issue is going to be a serious issue, but we have to, all the credit business, the corporates have to understand no more credit business will happen because they cannot ask the agents and airlines to pay credit because there is no money in the market. So that kind of a new era of business will start in the coming days. And we will see the change, and slowly we will build up, and we will bring back to the old situation probably in a year's time or 2 years' time, especially tourism industry. Probably other business, there are some other areas which they can come up quickly, like for probably the food industry, the oil industry, probably the healthcare industry. All those areas will come faster than ours, but ours will be the last one to recover, and we have to be very well prepared. But definitely, we are looking forward greater support from Government of India by soft loans, by at least a year moratorium, and no interest for this period for all our EMIs and GST holidays, and other kind of support, whichever they can give it to the tourism industry, because this is an industry which is supporting India very well for the last so many years, and this is the largest industry in the world. This is the largest industry in the world. So that's the kind of situation where we are in, and government should realize that, and government should come forward and extend their helping hand to all of us to do that. So we have past experiences, and from that experience, we have learned a lot of things, and even COVID-19 was the learning period for all of us in the world, our industry especially. I'm sure that we have a lot of ideas and restart zero level and rebuild our business, and with very careful ways and means and strategies, and in an intelligent way to do business and survive and rebuild and come out with revival. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baz. Mr. Karl Baz.
Yes, Murari. Yeah, yes. So
do you think that this pandemic could affect?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Do you think the pandemic could affect the way of doing business of travel and tourism?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
Do you think that the current crisis could affect the way of doing business of travel and tourism?
Well, yes, Murari, I think I echo what Mr. Bakaya said a little earlier. I think the way the corporate industry has reacted to the situation has to be taken into account. And I do agree that with what Jyoti also said, the entire ecosystem has come to a grounding halt. So even for corporate travel to react, even for leisure travel to react, you need to get the planes up in the air. The entire supply chain management has come to a gridlock. So obviously, we need to look at all of these factors before we can even say that the coming festive season, whether it is Diwali, Dussehra, Durga Puja, or Christmas, will have some semblance of normalcy for domestic travel, or will have some sense of a little bit of business for domestic travel, because you need to first understand whether flights will be up in the air and to what extent and what routes, what destinations. You need to understand what sort of hotels are going to be back having shut down floors, some hotels having shut down completely. So there are a lot of other issues of this nature that need to be looked at alongside the impact on corporate travel. and so obviously the pandemic has redefined and reshaped the way we do business. We have to accept the scenario. I don't see us, and I do agree with what Ankush said a little earlier. I mean, if you take the pre-COVID selfie, I think, or the snaps that we all had, I think those days are about a year, if not longer. It's not going to come back so soon. I think those sort of smiles will take at least 12 to 18 months before we can see that. And we just have to find out how each of us survive the scenario. I see smaller agents being able to react. A smaller agent actually is at an advantage today. They are nimble, so they can cut costs if they have to. They don't. The first advice I would say is don't have pride. If you have to give up that office, give up that office. Operate from home if you have to for the next 1 year. If you have to cut your staff, I would rather you shave off the costs and get them to work from home. So these are the sort of decisions that small-sized travel agents and tour operators who are nimble can take. The larger mid-sized ones will have a little more difficult because some of the larger ones are self-owned. I don't want to mention names, but they're self-owned. So those self-owned mid-sized tour operators will have a lot of decisions to take because they are obviously leveraged their properties. There'll be a lot of decisions to be taken. Some of them will have to, I hope, will have cash reserves to last 12 to 18 months. The larger organizations, well, there will be, I think, a lot of change management that will come into play, and obviously decisions will have to be taken in line with change management, if people can read between the lines on that statement.
Thank you. Now we have some questions from the audience. My first question is for Mr. Bakaya. What would be the expected time wherein the domestic travelers start moving in the country after the pandemic is over? Mr. Bakaya, are you there? Mr. Bakaya? Okay, I'm passing this question to Mr. Nadeem. Mr. Nadeem?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, Murari.
Yeah.
Yes, Murari.
What would be the expected time wherein for domestic travelers start moving in the country?
I think it is definitely going to be 3 to 4 months time for the domestic traveler to move from one destination to another because the COVID-19 locking down is not going to be withdrawn completely in the next 2 months. There will be partial restrictions in some of the states, some of the destinations, some of the tourist spots. So it will be difficult, or there will be reservation for people to travel so freely as they have been traveling. Just picking up the bag and traveling like that. It is not going to happen like that because a lot of, their fear complex have to be completely addressed by the airlines when they travel on the airlines and when they go to a destination and stay in a hotels, like Bakaya said earlier, and also, the destination safety and health conditions because of the COVID-19 after effects. So, but definitely, I am very hopeful because I want to be positive. Probably in a period of 4 months' time, people will start traveling because just before the next season, international season. Now it's April, and May, June, July, August, September should be the right period for domestic travel to restart and moving on slowly, not at the same level which has happened in the last couple of years.
Thank you. My next question is to Madam Rupinder Bara. The question is, gig companies may survive during this time, but how government is planning to save and support the SMEs in tourism sector?
Murari, as I already mentioned, the need for providing financial support or for pushing statutory compliances and also taking up with the state governments is something that is already being done. And since it is in
So I
their
think we have to
purview, I
wait
think we have.
for the response to come from the finance ministry and from the state government.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for Ankush. Ankush, how big do you think will the impact be on corporate travel and conferences? I am guessing a lot of them will shift to digital platforms henceforth. Ankush?
Yeah. So I think, Murari, the conferences is definitely not going to happen, at least for 2020. Reason being is because of a lot of companies will not have good results coming in this quarter, and I don't see much recovery post July as well. The essential travel for corporates, for example, some software industry which might need to go to the US or something one has to travel for work will happen, especially in the next couple of months when the world starts opening up for themselves as well as India. But I think MICE is definitely going to be. It's not going to happen this year, honestly. I mean, because the money is not going to be there, the fear factor, and I'm sure a lot of companies will avoid people traveling together, and being in the same room, partying, or even in the same aircraft. So I think that's going to take time before, but it's definitely going to be 2021. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is directed to Ms. Jyoti Mayar. Considering the fact that our industry is at a scenario where things have to start from scratch, can we look at formation of a regulatory body to monitor and ensure fair practices and compliances within the trade?
Yes, thank you, Murari. I think that's a very good question, actually, because since long we've been actually asking the government to give us an industry status, which is again our demand right now, because Rupinder is here right now with us and sharing the platform, and I must actually appreciate the way MOT is really hand-holded us to get a lot of documents and data done. But we being a very unorganized industry, we really need to get organized, because to get collection of data also was a big challenge for us in the right format, and I still don't think we've got it all. So I think we really need the MOT and MOCA to come in to regulate our industry, because there are only two ministries which have to look into it so that we get clearances from them and we become an organized industry. And industry status too is the future, and that's the way we would be working together, creating corpuses for the disaster management, like things happen like this. And even we've already requested the government, and which is on our top priorities, that we should be setting up National Tourism Disaster Management Task Force, which we have given in our document to the ministries, between the central and the state, also across, for the survival of everyone. And this has to come in play so that we can survive well.
Okay. Next question could be, I can ask to Carl, what is the solution for mid to a small travel agency to get back on track and to sustain cash flow?
Well, I think the first thing I would suggest for cash flow management, and I think in my opinion, this has to do with vendors and this has to do with HR. I'm talking from a medium-sized organization perspective, not so much from a small-sized organization, right? So from a medium-sized organization, vendor management and HR will be the two key blocks that an owner-driven agency in a mid-level would need to look at. How do you manage your credit with your vendors? So I would suggest that you reach out and have conversations with your vendors, with your suppliers on extended credit line, on deferred payments in a staggered approach in order to maintain some semblance of cash flows into the company and cash balances. Similarly, with HR, you will have to come up with an HR policy. So as opposed to retrenching of staff, you may want to get into additional ancillary revenue streams. I know it's difficult to fathom getting into other areas, but this is one will have to brainstorm and see whether one can reinvent themselves, as opposed to retrenching and downsizing. Maybe we talk about staff going on unpaid leave and so on. And these are all measures that are already being adopted in Europe and across the US and North American markets. So I think here, mid-size agencies that have multiple office locations, agencies that have 30 and plus staff, I think they will have to look at vendor management, Murari, and they'll have to look at HR management as two key pillars. They'll have to grapple with that, short of closing down.
Thank you. The last question is, what could be the two suggestions from each one of you to the government and from Ma'am Barar to the industry? Two suggestions. We'll start with Ankush.
So I think definitely the government should help on the moratorium when it comes to the GST and TDS because that will really help the smaller and medium agents to manage their cash flows. And I think banks should definitely be a little easy and give some soft credit and help with the working capital and not to declare them as NPAs because this is a tough time and I think banks need to look at this more pragmatically and more empathetic towards the SMEs. So this is my two suggestions to the national banks as well as the government on the GST and TDS.
Thank you. Mr. Najeeb.
Definitely 12 months moratorium for loans, EMIs. I support what Ankush said. And then, GST holiday for the tourism industry for the next, 12 to 18 months. And, whatever other extra support the industry can be given by the government, they should consider. These are the two important things with that. And soft loans with a lower interest for without any collateral securities for the tourism industry to survive the next 2 years. This is very, very critical for us because that's the only way we can move forward and rebuild our business and come back to the normal situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bayal.
Well, we've made this
Hello.
entire document which state has already submitted
Yeah.
To the ministries and
Top two suggestions.
Some parts, of course, Ankush has said, some Najeeb has said, which are very thankful for the same. But right now, I think our biggest challenge is that we need support for the salaries of our staff, which I think is very, very important, and the establishment cost, which the industry is not going to survive these 9 months without help in that. And that we do not want unemployment come into force because we really are not interested that India should get into the mode of unemployment. Secondly, which I said, which is very important, I'm going to reiterate that the National Tourism Disaster Management Task Force needs to be set up to see that there's a seamless working between the state and the center, because domestic is going to be the one on the rise next now, and that's what we need to look at it. So there's a seamless way of travel, and domestic tourism could be, come more into focus. The other thing which we have been actually saying is that 200% of weighted exemption should be given for MICE and for the Indian corporates, because yes, with this social distancing right in our minds, which is going to continue for a long time, I think we need to incentivize the industry and the corporates to see that our business in our country grows a lot. And lastly, I'm going to reiterate the whole thing that we do want industry status to move forward in a collective and a better way of working. Thank you, Murari.
Thank you. Mr. Kalvas.
Murari, the way I look at it, and totally agree with what Ankush and Najeeb and Jyoti have all been saying. There's no doubt that there has to be some form of concession on GST. There has to be a rollback of TCS. And I think they should understand, the government needs to take this call even in the interest of skill development. It's not just travel agents and tour operators that are going to be out of business. There's a huge ancillary industry that's linked to it, whether it's call centers. So there's going to be mass unemployment and a huge effect on vote banks as well, if you want to look at it from a political angle going forward. So I think it would do fairly well for the government to take notice of a TCS rollback or a GST concession at this stage.
Thank you. The final word is from Madam Barar. Madam, the Ministry of Tourism has been very proactive and supporting the industry and each and every state. What is your two suggestions to the industry so that they can stay afloat?
We are looking for.
I think there is no running away.
Madam Barat. Yeah. Madam Barat.
So I was just saying that there's no running away from the fact that it's a very grim situation, and we have to confront it with a great amount of resilience and planning. Mr. Vaz said management. Yes, I agree that a lot of homework needs to be done on creating savings and tiding over this very, very difficult period for not only our industry and not only for our country but for the entire world, and believe in the coming times that things will start getting better. And I think it also gives us an opportunity to look at how we reposition our products, how we market new territories, how we focus on domestic tourism to begin with. I think it's an unprecedented situation and will require a lot of creative thinking on the part of all of you. And we are there with you to work on everything that we can. And wherever it needs to be taken up with another ministry, again, as Jyoti said, we are with you in taking up and discussing with ministries wherever the need is required.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I would like to thank each one of you for being a part of this information e-conference on COVID-19, and hope you enjoyed viewing this. This is Murari signing off for now. See you at our next webinar on Korea tourism on 30th April. Goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Once again.
Thank you, Murari.
Thank you, Murari.